Okay. I'm not used to standing at a podium, so you might say I have a little ADHD, but I just got to move around a lot. So first of all, I want to say I'm just in awe to be in front of all of you. The talent that's in this room today, authors and PhDs, attorneys, master's degrees, and I'm a little humbled, and Shar, thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited. But I am excited to be here with my mom, Anita Pomerantz. My mom graduated in 08. I graduated in 06. And neither my mom nor myself, I start crying. We went to our graduation ceremonies. We never did. So when my sister, Janine, from Santa Barbara, enrolled in the class in fall, with me pushing her, we promised her that when she graduated, that we would all come to Janine's graduation. So in honor of Janine, she was not here, just want to say congratulations. Yeah. I'm a full-time celebrant. I perform approximately 50 ceremonies a year. I'm a full-time mom, full-time wife. I'm a professional runway model in an African-American modeling troupe. It was really hard to try out. So I'm proud to say that. And I recently, and I mean recently, as a few weeks ago, just signed a 10-year lease for an old theater that was built in 1914, and I'm going to renovate it. It's been sitting dormant for 24 years into banquets, arts, business, wedding chapel. Yeah, thank you. And I don't know if you're standing because I'm crazy. In Kankakee, Illinois, which was once known to be the worst place to live in the United States, as Dave Letterman said. Yes. It's due to open its doors on September 1st, and I'm excited to share it with all my celebrant friends in Chicago and anybody else that wants to do ceremonies there. The last thing, I'm also Mrs. Kankakee County. But more about that later. In 2003, I left my job in global sales in the telecom industry. One day when I was dropping off my then 2 children at daycare, my 2.5-year-old called her mommy. It was my light bulb moment. I said, what am I doing? All these working after hours, weekends, business trips, the 6-figure income, it just didn't matter. I relate to you, Kim. And Cindy. So I quit my job. We sold my expensive house, and I told my husband we're moving back to Kankakee. Soon after that, I found out I was pregnant with my 3rd child. I was so happy to be at home with all my babies, but I knew that I would have to get a part-time job. I'd been searching, not really sure what I was going to do. So my neighbor, Sharon Thiessen, said, I saw an ad in a magazine. I saw an ad in a magazine. She told me a celebrant. I thought, ooh, that sounds cool. I don't really know what that is, but it's a cool title. I love the idea. So I called the foundation, and I talked to Shar. I was about to enroll in class, and I started feeling sick. I was diagnosed with a thyroid problem. And 3 months after that, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. I had 2 surgeries. My vocal cords were paralyzed. I had radiation, and I felt like hell. But just like Kim, I realized that it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. This challenge in life made me realize that I've been given this wonderful opportunity by God to cherish the people whom I love dearly and embark on a new mission, a celebrant's mission, to help change the course of others' lives with fellowship and with ceremony. I experienced a spiritual conversion to become the best wife, the best mother, the best daughter, the best sister, and the best friend of humanity. And it was this true calling, this newfound lease on life, that a new door opened, and my celebrant's journey began. And I took off out of a cannon. I perform weddings, baby welcomings, healing ceremonies, renewals, and funerals, but mostly weddings. And now I'd like to take you through a journey of some of my ceremonies and explain why I think what we do as celebrants is so powerful. To be honest, when I first started this journey, I admit that I just thought it would be pretty stinking cool to officiate wedding ceremonies. How positive, right? No corporate life. But as I started to experience the joys, the sorrow, and the superhuman strengths that were accomplished through ceremony, it was then I understood how important my role was, how important your role is. A celebrant is an officiant, a ritual maker, a storyteller, a healer, and a friend. So an agnostic family came into my life. I called them the Triple J's. Jessica, Jermaine, and Jamariel. It was January 2008. Jessica, the mother, called for a September wedding. Their unique wedding story, their love story, started out in a boxing ring. She, a Northside forensic psychiatrist, taking a boxing lesson, and he, an ex-professional boxer from the South Side. Jermaine was hired to spar with Jessica. And when their gloves met, sparks flew. But for some reason, marriage never seemed to be a priority for the two of them. Together, they made a beautiful daughter named Jamariel. And at the age of 7, Jamariel was first diagnosed with leukemia. While in the hospital, Jamariel told her parents all she ever wanted to do is be a flower girl in their wedding. So they made a promise to her that she would be a flower girl in their wedding. And that's when the first miracle happened, and she went into remission. So the wedding planning began. But imagine the terrible surprise on June 1st, as they were planning for their September wedding, when they found out the cancer was back with a vengeance. Jamariel only had about a 10% chance to live, even if they found a stem cell donor. The family needed something to look forward to. They needed strength, so the wedding was moved up 3 weeks. 3 weeks later, it took place in the Cancer Survivors Garden at Lincoln Park in Chicago. And you can see in the picture here, during the ceremony, we danced. We danced for strength. We danced for life. And we danced for another miracle for Jamariel. I think I look good in purple. Where does a family turn to that doesn't believe in God? My celebrant's journey began to make sense even more than ever. As she was preparing for her stem cell transplant, I proposed a healing ceremony. They agreed. So I snuck in a candle, lemon aromatherapy, into the hospital room. Jessica, Jermaine, and Jamariel and myself, we held hands in a circle on her hospital bed. We went around the circle and we told stories, happy stories of wonderful things Jamariel has done or said in her life things that she's overcome. We told her she must fight for her life and that she was needed here on this earth. The second miracle took place. Her body accepted the stem cell. And every day her percent to live bar was raised. And 8 months later, she went into remission. The Triple J's realized how important ceremony was in their lives. So exactly 1 year later, in the same spot where we had married, we had a vow renewal ceremony and a ceremony to celebrate Jamariel being cancer-free. I'm excited to tell you that they are expecting a baby actually in June, and guess who gets to do the baby naming? I started thinking about the Venn diagram of ceremony. I don't even know if there is a such thing, but I started thinking about it, and I believe that this family embodies it. The joys, the sorrow, and the superhuman strength accomplished through ceremony. I asked myself, was it me? Am I so special? But the answer is no. I'm a celebrant, trained in the art of ritual and symbolism. And this is what a celebrant is put on this earth to do. This was my calling. This is your calling. So I started thinking, maybe I should try to do funerals. So I visited my local funeral home, gave my celebrant elevator pitch, and waited for a call. About a month later, the funeral director called and said, "I have your first funeral." My reply, "Great!" Well, not so great, but you know. Mr. Clancy exclaimed, "There's just one thing. He's still alive. And he wants to tell you what type of funeral he wants." Richard, known to most as Ringo, was told he had 6 weeks to live, dying of colon cancer. He believed in God. He called himself an ex-Catholic. They did not belong to a church. I remember my knees shook in the car ride on the way to his house to meet Ringo and his family. What would I say? What makes me an expert? What would I say to a dying man? What do I know about grief? How would I console this family? How would I compose myself? So I called Shar. Shar? If you remember that call. And she gave me a pep talk. She told me to stick with what we do best. We tell someone's story. And to stay strong because this family needs you. So I wiped my tears. I went in their house and I started the interview just as I would a wedding. Ringo, his family, and I met several times. That's why my joke is Tuesdays with Ringo. Ringo telling me stories of him running across the field during halftime at a Notre Dame game wearing nothing but a sock. Telling me stories when he was a young rock musician and special moments with his son. The family later told me that this process prepared them for the funeral. It prepared them for Ringo's death. And believe me, during this process, I had no idea if I was doing everything right. But there's no right or wrong here. I know I made plenty of mistakes, and I know you will too, but we're going to learn and grow from everyone. I learned a lot from this family. So the same funeral parlor called me for my second funeral. A 4-year-old boy lost his battle with brain cancer and died on Christmas Day. To start off, my oldest son's name is Lucas. So it hit home immediately. Oh, such emotion. How do I console this family? that just lost their youngest son to cancer. What would I say to them? What's my role here? Stick with storytelling, my brain said. Remember what Shar told me. But my heart said, become this family's friend. They need you. They have no pastor to turn to. Everyone was in mourning. I learned all about Lucas West. He was a rascal. He loved burping his ABCs, playing with rocks and dinosaurs. I remember his mother telling me all he ever wanted was a wiener dog. And she felt bad that she never got one for him. Can I tell you that the day that I arrived at their house, they brought a wiener dog home. What I learned most from this funeral is that God has a plan for this family. And by us helping tell their story, it helps them on their next journey. Now, my mom will probably laugh, but my whole life, I've really never cared for dogs. My son Lucas has ADHD, and for years he'd been bugging me to get a dog. And along with my other son and daughter, my husband and I always said, no. They're dirty. They're expensive. We'd probably have to clean up after them. But when I left the house that day of Lucas West's family, I started thinking that maybe we should get a dog too. So I started looking online. I had no idea what type of dog to get. My children were young, one had bad allergies, the boys would be rough with it. My daughter was only 4. So I walked into animal control. I told them my issues, and they said there was a special person there that day that occasionally volunteered. His name was Steve. They called him the local dog whisperer. He asked me a few questions. He took me down all the rows of cages, and he stopped at one. He said, "This is Scamp, and this is the dog for you." It's been 2 years since we've got Scamp, and Scamp changed all of our lives. How did we live before without her? She is perfect. We love her, and now I am proud to say I am a 100% full-fledged dog lover. I even hosted a doggy birthday party 2 weeks ago. I did. Now, this is when the story gets a little crazy. A bride called me for a wedding. We scheduled a meeting at a local Starbucks, right? And imagine my surprise when I walked in and saw that Steve was the groom. I started crying instantly when I saw him because of everything he did for our family. I was so happy to get to pay it forward. Lori and Steve met online, the old-fashioned way, right? They were both huge all-animal lovers. Lori saw a picture of Steve with his dog and fell in love with him. Almost every day they walked their dogs at the Kankakee State Park and River. In fact, this is where Steve proposed. This is where the wedding had to be. During the ceremony, I explained to the guests the rich history of the park and the river, that it was once home to the Potawatomi Indians. In fact, it boasts to be the last great American Indian Council in 1830. I too explained the true love Lori and Steve had for all animals and for their rescue efforts. For the wedding, I read the Apache wedding prayer. At this very moment, 3 eagles circled above and blessed this animal-loving couple. And the Indians say if you are ever in prayer or ceremony and you see an eagle, that your prayer will come true. This couple was triple blessed. Oh, this is going to be hard for you guys to see. And although I didn't see the eagles, several of the guests did, and they took this picture with their cell phones. Now, I have to say something. When I was writing this presentation, as Jane says, who am I really? I really didn't understand my celebrant's journey. And I got to this slide and I thought, holy cow, almost like every ceremony I do has something to do with cancer, right? So I started thinking about who am I? I'm not the wedding celebrant anymore. I'm not doing this just for fun to marry people. I'm a celebrant. And I'm trained in the art of ritual and symbolism in all areas of everyone's life. I want to conclude by saying, believe in yourself. You can do anything. Every year I lay on the table to get my nuclear scan and to make sure that I'm still cancer-free. And every year I say to myself, what have I not accomplished that I've always wanted to do? So at the age of 43, I said I always wanted to be in a pageant. I want to win a crown. I want to win a sash. So I qualified as a semifinalist for the Mrs. Illinois pageant, which I will compete in on July 24th. And lo and behold, pageant rules. No, there was no one else in my county that qualified. So I'm Mrs. Kankakee County. And Monday, my mother and I look for us on the Today Show because my mother made a sign that says, we will marry you, and we're going to go to Rockefeller Plaza, and we're going to follow our dream of getting on national television. Okay? Thank you all for having me. I really enjoyed this, and I can't wait to spend the rest of the weekend with you.